Hello, it's June 18th, 2018. I'm Tony Smario, coming to you again from my father's YouTube channel, BroSal.org. Thanks for being here. Sorry, my voice is a little hoarse, and sorry it's taken a couple of weeks. I really didn't anticipate what's gone on the last couple of weeks. I think the analogy of a shipwrecked sailor struggling to keep his head above the waves is a pretty apt one. But I don't want to waste everybody's time talking about my personal life because it doesn't really matter. So I'm really sorry I haven't had a computer, I haven't access to the internet almost at all in the last couple of weeks, or even hot water and power. So anyway, I do have a few things I think are important to talk about. Dad, I got to see Dad this weekend. He filled me in on what's going on with the North Korea drama and some other things. Got a new president coming to Mexico in a couple of weeks, and that promises to create some real drama because of the situation there. The person who's been favored for the last 20 years has essentially won the election twice and had it taken away from him twice. And so many people are expecting something like that again, but each time it creates a little more of a drastic reaction because of the continued oppression of the people and no, excuse me, seeing no headway toward getting some of their concerns met. And so I'm, experiencing that now that I'm, back in the good old USA for a little bit. I find it increasingly oppressive, more so than when I was here 12 years ago, before I sailed away the first time. And some of the things are, to me, very telling. All of a sudden, the chip in everybody's card, the plastic cards with the chip, and the chip just goes into the reader, and boy, it just keeps getting simpler to not have cash. And a chip, I don't think it's an accident that it's called a chip, since the propaganda is Antichrist, the beast systems, and come along and force everybody to take a mark. Well, I guess for a Christian, forcing them to take a plastic card with a chip and forcing them to put the chip on their hand, I guess that's what the beast does. The way I see it, it's exactly the same system, and they're already just moving people in the direction of accepting the efficiency and rationale of a chip that you simply have on you, that you already do. It's the same chip. Instead of being in the end of your card, it's in the end of your hand. And so one of the things I've observed, and why I want to call this connecting the dots in 2018, is because there's so many, one of the things Dad and I were talking about, there's so many elements of life that have changed so fast. I think a lot of it around the Donald Trump circus presidency, because that has become it's like 9/11, just all of a sudden this big false flag event, no rational thinking. Hey, why is this happening? Who could do this? Who's pulling the strings? What's really going on? No, just the big government moves to declare war. You're either with us or against us. And this whole false flag, false war for 15 years and more now that has resulted. And so what could the beast system be? I mean, what are people, what do you think's coming that isn't already here? These terrorists that lie, that deceive the whole world. Freedom and democracy. They hate us for our freedoms, right? So I know that's not the deception that's coming to the whole world through the Messiah, the false Messiah, that's going to deceive people with miracles. I'm just saying, look at the level of deception that the real power in the world, the people that enable, we enablers of this military, this deceptive military-based, financial-based tyranny in the world that was already going on 50 years ago when Professor Quigley pointed it out. These guys have a plan. They want to rule the world, and they can. And my only problem is why they keep it a secret. They're obviously the most fit to rule. They're the ones with the money invested. They're the ones pulling the strings. You know, why pull them from behind? See, because Quigley, I guess, didn't see the whole false messiah. You know, we got to build a temple one day. We got to replace religion with the right religion. So if you keep remembering that from the standpoint of this beast system that the Christians have falsely propagandized is some supernatural angel that comes from the sky, or like Richie from Boston, you know, CERN is going to open the pit and let all the demons out of the pit. And I say, you know, pit's open, demons are out, and been running amok for quite some time, because that's all obviously allegory for what's inside of us, these demons, this beast system. And that system now is trying to do away with a belief in a God outside of ourselves. And so all the manifestations that we see is what I'm trying to connect the dots. The wars and rumors of wars, North Korea, Russian aggression, Chinese trade, you know, negotiations, you know, all these things that the people Quigley were pointing at 50 years ago, these financial movers that we know have a plan, that Quigley said had a plan, but to him the plan was simply to, you know, control everything. No mention of Third Temple, you know, Messiah, new religion. He wouldn't see in that part of the plan. But it was clear by this social and economic machinations that were obvious to people that can see him from his perspective and study him the way he did. You know, these guys, they influence countries. They make presidents or kill presidents. You know, they make companies or reduce companies to rubble. So with that sort of influence, you know, eventually the whole world's got to come under your thumb. And again, to reflect back on Daniel, this fourth kingdom that will come and devour the whole world. And so I say that in connecting the dots nowadays, I'm starting to see this real wholeness to it all that includes even the whatever previous fall that's brought on by man's own greed and unwillingness to share and be like the Messiah, but seek to be his own Messiah, seek to be his own Savior, seek to go his own way. be his own God. That must be somehow how God is manifest to God's creation by you know, the ultimate paradox. Only by trying to become God ourselves do we find that we're not God. So that whole idea of the lie in the garden, if you eat the fruit, you'll be like God. I can see that as a lie in my own mind. Wait a minute, what do I need God for? I've got the knowledge. As long as I keep opening myself to rational understanding, then my progression in that will lead me to the highest possible existence. And there can't be anything beyond that. Some fairy floating around in outer space. And so, if you could get your mind around the legitimacy of, as a Christian, what you would call the enemy's perspective, that there is no Christianity, there is no God, we are God. They've painted that as some sort of devil from the sky perspective, but that's the human heart perspective. It's what we're all struggling against. That's the he who overcomes. What's there to overcome but all these demons inside of us? I'm yet to see this any kind of real evidence for demons outside of me, or angels for that matter, although I'll have to say I have seen a couple things that lead me to believe in supernatural forces, but not these demonic forces that I'm told about. Uh, and as I've pointed out many times, I mean, all the people in power, they're worshiping devils and drinking blood. Well, what are these devils doing? How come they can't get nothing done? Why do they need, you know, human feces like the Clintons or the Trumps or the Bushes to get stuff done? Why do they need murderers and assassins in human form to get stuff done if those guys can just raise demons? Where's all this demon power? So I say, if there is such a realm, the demon power is in letting people like the Bushes and the Trumps and the Clintons somehow feel justified in being murdering assassins in their hearts, so that they feel good about that. They're doing the right thing. They're doing it for all the right reasons. That's why all our movies in United States of America, all our heroes, Tom Cruise or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Mel Gibson or any of these guys, they got to be killers. They got to be great assassins. I mean, you just haven't made it in Hollywood, right? Until you played the part of the good assassin that kills, the James Bond, that gets to kill all the bad guys for the good and great and free America. And so, I think breaking down the brainwashing is very difficult, which is why I have to keep covering some of the same ground. How can America not be seen as part of this great deception? This idea that there's this great and free country protecting its citizens and fighting the good fight around the world. That's proven to be a lie. Everything about it. Smedley Butler called him out on it 100 years ago almost. Said that he went to Mexico in 1904 or whatever to subdue the country for the oil interests. That was his perspective looking back. That's what he was really there to be, a mercenary. So the evidence is all there if anyone wants to look. As Dad and I were talking about this past weekend, it's really hard to give any credibility in my mind to pundits on either side of the red team, blue team argument whether it's the CNN, the Al Jazeera, the Fox News, and they don't seem to have an understanding of Quigley's, Professor Quigley's perspective on the world, let alone any knowledge at all about Anthony Sutton's books about us during the Vietnam War being responsible for the strength of the enemy we were fighting because our factories through Ford and Standard Oil, et cetera, were giving all the technology to Russia and to pass on to North Korea. And so, I'm sorry, the Vietnamese, the things that were going on in Vietnam, and then later North Korea. And Anthony Sutton was writing books about it. Lost his job in Los Angeles at one of the universities over it. Had to become an independent writer because nobody would hire him for what he was saying. And what he was saying, as I've pointed out many times, is that we wouldn't have an enemy in Russia if we didn't create it. If we weren't purposely keeping them up with our technology. And one of his arguments was that the reason we keep them communists is because there's no advancement in communism. There's no reason, there's no impetus of that being better than your neighbor, making something better and having more, which is the nature of capitalism and the free market, which creates this progression of technology. Somebody makes it better. Somebody makes the mousetrap better. Anthony Sutton's argument, well, in Russia, you create these communist people on the other side, and you supply them with the technology so that there's parity, but you never have to worry about them getting ahead of you because in their communist setup, there's no the rationale isn't there for the development of technology. Everybody just has what is given, and everybody has the same, and the motivation is not there to develop the next new thing like it is in our world. And so he argued at that time that that was the strategy of keeping communists, that they didn't really want, communists to become capitalists at all. The whole idea was to play that game of communism versus capitalism, but to make sure those people stayed communist. And that's why we funded communism, because the communists will never develop the technology to outdo you. They get their technology from you. So you know what they have and what they can do. And so if you're directing wars through these proxies, you can imagine how easy it is when you know what they've got and you can give them what they need to keep up, but never enough to do anything you don't want them to do. So that was Anthony Sutton's perspective. And Quigley, Professor Quigley certainly is, no social commentator of geopolitics or even economics can ignore the work of Professor Quigley, can they? But of course they do. You're not going to hear that out of any of these ridiculous pundits that pretend that the argument's really over what Trump's doing and what Obama did, and that these are the people that really have the power. No acknowledgement that they all come from the CFR, and okay, what is that all about? What is this CFR? What is this Masonic brotherhood? What is the Brotherhood of 322? Why is that meaningful at all? Are these alliances and fraternities powerful at all? I mean, why is there so much evidence that they are? Why is there so much seemingly general understanding about it? And that completely ignored by the mainstream media carriers on every side, just like 9/11. Doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right, 9/11 was terrorism. It's just if you're on the left, if you're on the Obama squad, then the terrorism was caused by our own bad policies of imperialism in the region. If you're on the Bush, make Trump make America great again imperialism squad, it's the fault of the liberals for being too soft on these savages and thinking that they'll be soft back. You got to be strong. You got to, kill first and then ask questions. Shoot first, ask questions later. So the fact that that's gone into a whole new high gear, like Dad and I were, the absurdity of the Trump administration stance, the pretext that this is somehow making America great or bringing back any kind of economic greatness, all these stories that come out of the Fox News side that sound like, boy, we're making it's Trump the genius. It took Trump to go settle the North Korea thing. None of it. I mean, Kissinger couldn't do it. Brzezinski couldn't do it. None of the think tanks could figure out what to do with this guy. But the twit of a president tweeting, we're going to wipe you off the earth. He had the right strategy. That was the way to really do it. So, son of a gun, it just took a dimwit, philandering, lowlife like a Donald Trump, a real estate scumbag. That's the kind of mind it really took to get one over on North Korea, not Kissinger, not any of these think tanks that have been around since Quigley's time. No, that's it. Shoot, those guys have been all wrong. Look, they screwed up. They were informing Obama. But old Trump came along, boy. He cleaned up the swamp, didn't he? He put all J.P. Morgan people in he's got literally criminals in every position, threatening to wipe people off the map. We got, let's build some tactical nukes, show people how strong we are, because that's the way you show them when you're a right wing fanatic that refuses to look at history, has no acknowledgement that 9/11, we still can't show the people, Donald. Where's the pictures of the plane, Donald, hitting the Pentagon? That would sure give you a lot of credibility in the government right now to say, look, let's just show you that was a plane, just like we told you. Now, stop watching your conspiracy theory BS. So, but you'll never hear one of them call for that. You'll never hear one of them bring up that, the buildings don't fall down when they're hit by planes. So what in the hell happened on 9/11 that started all these wars that are all lies to kill all these innocent people? And if that's not the beast system, what beast do Christians think is coming from the sky? See? So this is all got to be part of the deception. Because remember, it's a great deception. The world is deceived by their false Messiah. All except the last two witnesses, whatever that represents. I say it's got to represent Iran and I don't know, Palestine. Who says no? Who keeps saying no, even when the whole world sees miracles and says yes? And so where are we, in that plan? Dad and I have been talking about the significance of, as I say, this Donald Trump presidency, which sort of breaks the mold that they've been in, this back and forth politics, red team, blue team politics. It's still a red team, blue team because you got to divide people. But the politics seems to have broken out into this crazy world where, we got a dictator like Gaddafi, the side that loves him. The 10% on Fox News claims he speaks for the good of the people and everybody loves him, even though everybody's in the street all over the world protesting against him. the 10% on Fox News, keeps talking about everybody's marching down the street, what a hero he is, how great he is, how nuts are the 90% that think he's a homicidal maniac. And meanwhile, the 90% on the other side, all they can do is be divided over, which scandal is most important, which stupid game show that they watch, which sports team, you know. So this whole circus Truman Show kind of manipulation, brainwashing programming in our world today has certainly taken this giant leap somehow right under our noses, from planes that cannot knock buildings down in their footprint to human beings that cannot become president suddenly tweeting policy on social media, the kind of inflammatory policy, little rocket man will wipe you race of people off the earth, this kind of insanity. And that just, the mainstream news talks about it. They just banter back and forth like nothing's happened. Nothing's really any different today than it's ever been. We still got our same respectable leaders trying to work it out. Everybody's just trying to figure out what to do about Russian aggression and China. And no, and never, 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 even with all that, what used to be very underground knowledge, the Quigley, Anthony Sutton, all this kind of uh, Bill Cooper, all these guys that have been pointing the finger and really getting underneath it for 20, 30 years now. You had to go see a lecture. You had to really be someone outside the mainstream even to catch a whiff of it, as far as general population. Now, it's all got a name, conspiracy theories and blah, blah, blah. Of course, YouTube's become BoobTube to be full of all the misinformation so that all that simple truth, the CFR, manipulation of, that's where they draw the pool of people who are made, who are committed, who know who they work for. And then who do they work for? All these Masonic organizations and fraternities that lead back to Jesuit organizations, right? All funded through these banks that steal through their programs. And meanwhile, the population is, what can you do? That's just the way it is. And so here we are where the deceptions, it's all so deep that the truth is right there now on social media every day. I mean, the truth is right there and hidden amongst all the BS, like little gems, little bits of gold and hidden, hidden in in the landfill among all the trash. And you look out there and all you see, it's just all trash. You walk among it, it's all trash. It stinks. It's up to your ankles. You just do not expect to find a gem or a chunk of gold out there, right? And so to me, that's the way the truth is now. It's out there, Good luck finding it. It's so well concealed in all the trash around it. And so, and that's all got to be for a very good reason, is why I want to keep harping on this. And that very good reason seems to be that they have to keep showing you that black is white. They can never let their guard down and let you see that this America, this United States of America is nothing but, is nothing but the beast system, is nothing but the terrorist, is nothing but the military aggressor, the enslaved nation who who brainwashes its citizens to imagine they're free and great, and even to the most third world nation who has any educated perspective of the world, they're seen as, the United States of America is laughed at and seen as just anyone who travels. I live in a place in Mexico that has a lot of travelers, a lot of people from all over the world. I've met the last 10 years down there. Friends from Australia, from England, from Germany. Just had some friends from that are from uh, the Ukraine and Russia that moved to Germany as teenagers, but they're still their families in the Ukraine and Russia, and they went traveling on a year through Canada and then down to Mexico and up into California. And I hear the same report from everybody. The United States was the worst place that we visited. The United States was the most expensive, most uh, regulated, most restricted, most, just everything about it. Plastic, cheap in the way of, what you get for what you spend. Bunch of paper buildings, bunch of flash, you know, a bunch of flash, but no substance. And so, and a hassle, everything a hassle when you're a foreigner. So that's, the view of America being so great is something that only the red team, blue team brainwashing programming of America, United States of America, continues to, you know, stand on. That's all they've got, is that on either side of the, CNN or Fox News, they're both telling you how great America is, but we need a socialist like Obama to, to be truly great in the world. And on the other side, no, we need nuclear weapons and a maniac like Trump to make us great. Someone who knows that you got to be strong, got to go out there and kick butt, got to be like those cowboys in the movies that tell them how it is, take no prisoners. And so you create that paradigm and you sell it in every way from subtle to overt. You make people on their side feel the impact of it. If you're on the blue team, you realize how wrong the red team is. They just don't see it right. You can't fix things that way. If you're on the red team, you realize the blue team's they're living a dream. They live in a dream world. They're a bunch of pansies and socialist fools that never have learned the lesson that you can't trust these enemies of ours. They're always trying to suck us in so they can conquer us. And so you keep both sides, among other things, fighting that battle while you divide the families, divide the children. And Dad made, I thought, a really insightful remark this weekend about the people my father's age now that were born in the 30s are really dying out. There's not too many of them left. That whole generation that saw what he saw, the progression of history and what was who's who and what it means, where the value lies. It being replaced now with this generation born these days that know nothing but social media, know nothing but a world in which a guy like Donald Trump is president. That's you know, The Simpsons are where you get your most accurate social information is through, Family Guy and Simpsons and these rude, crude cartoon television shows. That's where you get truly educated. And of course, they show you what a mockery religion is and the morons that still believe in God and how much trouble they cause, even when they're sincere. Sometimes they're sweet and sincere and they just want to help you, but then unfortunately, Most of them are ready to kill you for their invisible God that doesn't exist. And so I'm standing back now looking at everything from the programming of television and the programming of religion and the programming of politics and the programming of the marketplace, preparing these kids, because I don't think it's happening yet. That's why Jesus said wars, and we're bound to hear about that. Nations are going to rise against nation. I mean, earthquakes and famines in diverse places. And, look what we're getting now. I mean, we have been for a long time, but it's really in our face in the news, which I think to me gives some impact to why that statement makes sense. You're bound to hear of. You're bound to hear of. Well, in those days, you would hear of it, if it happened through any of your channels of communication. You wouldn't necessarily hear about a volcano wiping people out in Hawaii or Indonesia if you were one of the people that Jesus was talking to then, saying you're bound to hear wars and rumors of wars, nation will rise against nation. How are you bound to hear about that if you're a sheep herder in Jerusalem? Let alone earthquakes in diverse places in the earth. So in our day and age, of course, through social media, you're bound to hear about anything they drop in your ear. So don't be alarmed. The end's not yet. So I say we're in this pattern right now that seems to be breaking out toward, the goal, which it's always moving toward the goal, but from 9/11 to get into the wars in that region, to bring that region into the focus of the world, to make it really the linchpin in the world's future. And then now, through all these circumstances of essentially driving the people broke with their purposeful bubbles and Ponzi schemes so that they could keep. I mean, the way I see it, they didn't need the money from Quigley's time. So it's not just for the money, it's for the plan. So how do you get the people desperate, where you need them? Well, they have too much. How do we break them? How do you get them desperate? Well, how do you get all that money out of the economy? You know, Start building bubbles and popping them. Build them, the bubbles that they can flow the money into, and then pop. Whoops, all the money's gone. You know, Oops, the Pentagon lost so many $1 trillion. Oops. Because how else are you going to suck the money out of the economy so that the people in this rich country that just, 50 years ago could buy a house, buy a car, raise their kids, send them to college, all on a working class job. And now the same working class person can hardly afford a garage to live in and fast food to eat. And if they didn't give them a new car at zero interest and give people like me credit that didn't deserve it so that they could build up this bubble to pop it, people like us would even be worse off. But that's how they keep carrying it. Sure, new cars for everybody. Let's do it. That keeps all the people who fund this game, the money gets back up to them. Because as you notice, there's only 3 big car companies really. They've owned the game now from the beginning. So all that car money flows into those same hands. Like all the military spending flows into the same hands. All the political funds. That's why senators are around for 50 years. All the money flows right up into the same coffers because there's a system, a beast, there's an animal devouring the earth with a plan to rule the earth. And so we're living, of course, in some very interesting time that I liken to the warning to Noah. Man's got 120 years, and God's spirit can't live with this much longer. You got 120 years, build an ark, that kind of thing. I feel like we're in that period where, and probably farther along than just the warning, but we're watching those days count down. We're watching that moment come when the flood's gonna come. I mean, time of trouble like never seen in the world before or will ever be seen again. So even the flood was easier on humanity than this is going to be. Even Sodom and Gomorrah, even whatever's gone before, this is going to be worse. And so, is it next year? I don't think so. I mean, I think it's in the future, and I think the moves that they're making that we see today, the whole pretense with North Korea being an enemy and nuclear this and that, that's all got to play into the plan of destruction and war. The Remember the scripture says that whole line about the cost of wheat. I believe they've calculated that at some extreme amount, right? $20 or something for a loaf of bread. Well, I mean, it's five now. So imagine that it doesn't take a big oops, what happened? The wheat crop. Oops, what happened? The oil spill. Oops, what happened? The volcano. Um, I mean, I see those, we're not there yet. Those days have to come. True famine, prices going through the roof. Venezuela, right? It's already happening, but only in it. If I had to guess, I'd say they're testing all their models. They're working out how many people starve, how many people line up, how many people go nuts, how many people get guns, how many people, what do the models show so that they can orchestrate, because that's where they're at. They got the technology and the people in place to orchestrate the final act, if you will, of their play. Like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and each of us play a part. And And so these guys have an idea of how this thing ends. And one of my insights this past year for myself has been in realizing that, oh, I see, it ends the way the scripture says it ends. Obviously, since they're God, a Messiah comes and all the religious people kill each other. And God brings a remnant back to the land. And so that's what they're going to do, I think. And all the all the things that we see in the world, I believe, must be terribly distracting from the spirit life and being close to God. I mean, that's why it all has to go. It's the beast. We think it's just all so cozy. It's all so comfortable for us. And it's very hard to break out of that comfort zone, even when you know something's right. And so I can only recommend that people watch less television and less media in general, because there's none of it's really true. I mean, nobody's presenting the truth that I can find. We're doing our best to interpret scripture and geopolitics and history the way we see it, but I don't know how true my vision is. I just know I'm approaching it looking for truth. The truth's very hard to find today because we're all so deceived. And there's a great deception afoot. It's not coming from the sky. It's we're in it. It's all around us. It's every time you walk down the street. Like I say, the chip is already with us in our. You can't move without a chip now. It's get we've moved from cash to a credit card that was kind of a pain in the butt to a credit card that you swipe that kind of wears out to a chip that doesn't. You just push it in. The machine tells you, don't touch it. Leave it there. Leave your hand still while we read your chip. All right, remove your hand. You're approved. I mean, we already are there. I already have the beast chip. I just carry it in my plastic card instead of on my person. But that's how you're going to know that this person working miracles and this great system that's bringing the world together in a brotherhood is not really Jesus, because he warned you that they're going to place a mark in your right hand and forehead, and you can't buy or sell without that. So no matter how perfect it is, the very elect will know. And they'll say, I mean, he sure looked good, this Messiah. Boy, you guys sure look good. This freedom thing, this make America great, this make us all brothers. Boy, oh boy, Donald Trump stopped the war against the nut in North Korea. Isn't he a wonderful president? He went over there and talked some sense. Kissinger couldn't do it. Obama wouldn't do it. But Donald Trump would do it. Darn it. That's all we needed was, 8% of the population to vote for a maniac like Trump to save all of us. We're so lucky. So, I mean, I'm not buying that. In fact, I find it to be the most laughable, from my perspective. I feel so lucky to be occasionally stranded away from the world, if you will, stuck in my own little world, just trying to keep my head above water, and really relating to what's real, my family and my health and people around me. And it's much more satisfying, actually. As difficult as it is, it's still it feels more like real life. Where this silly world of YouTube, when I was trying to figure things out and argue with people on YouTube and produce some sort of crop of, reaping what I was sowing, all 3 years almost now, and boy, oh boy, look what we've reaped. We get, 25 or 30 views, and I'm very satisfied that somehow the spirit out there was able to touch, a couple of dozen people in some way. I could certainly see having no views. I mean, I don't get it, how obscure we really are out there. But anyway, so it's I think I've been through my YouTube boob tube gyrations, and I sort of feel so much better not to spend a lot of time there. I don't think there's a lot there to get. I think it's so much distraction. I really don't find myself caring much anymore whether the earth is round or flat. What the heck's the difference? Maybe it's neither, you know? For all intents and purposes. I mean, like I say, if you go into construction and you're going to build bridges or highways, you're going to buy material as if it's flat. If you sail on the ocean, I can tell you, you're going to sail across it as if it's flat. If you row up or down a river, the only thing you're going to be concerned with is the flow of the river and not a curve over the curve of the earth. And if you go up in a balloon, I'm pretty sure the earth's not going to spin under you. So, for all intents and purposes, the earth's flat and it doesn't move. It might be spinning a zillion miles an hour through space. Who cares? So to spend all that time arguing about it, this Mandela effect, well, I don't know, right? Richie from Boston, I'm sure it's still very important. I mean, where are the demons, Richie? What's CERN doing? If they were ready a year ago, when I was listening to Richie from Boston, what have they been doing though? You know, they showed you the dance. CERN did the dance, and they opened up the big CERN thing in Switzerland. And oh boy, here come the demons. I mean, what are they doing? So all of those silly brainwashing, programming, boob tube, entertainment. It's not even entertainment, it's programming. It's entertaining programming. So the where I really feel fortunate that there's a couple dozen of us that are looking at the world differently. I hope you guys will stick with it, and gals, whoever's here, um, because I think it's a very interesting time, and anything could happen tomorrow, right? The, the false flag that they've got in their script, the attack, the peace treaty, right? Whatever's coming up is coming up. And I believe it's scripted. And as we watch it, knowing sort of where it's going and why, it's not so hard to fit the pieces in. You know, we've got everybody's attention on the Middle East now over the last decade, 2 decades. Before that, Americans didn't know one country from another or why, and now we all do. So will it take another decade to get these young kids now that are, fully integrated into the social media system to know who needs to live and who needs to die over there and why? Or will they be able to pick that up in a matter of a year or two? So I think this is an interesting time because that that timing and that process is bound to keep unfolding as it has for my family now, my father and I anyway, for the last 35 years. We've been able to really watch history unfold on a timeline that other people aren't watching. Out there in boob tube land, this same people are still calling for the crash of the economy. 2, 3 years ago, I was on to those guys, the X22 report and all these, and they have all their experts on, and this can't go on, and it's about to crash. Buy your silver. And I kept saying, well, you guys, scripture says silver and gold ain't going to save you. You really think that the same people that are manipulating the market aren't just going to take your silver once the time comes? Say, hey, you can't, you got to turn your silver in. Come and get your electronic money. Here's what we'll give you for your silver. And then what, you say no, okay, eat your silver. That's fine. Eat it or trade it in for food. It's up to you. But here's what it's worth now. Yeah, you bought it. It was $20 an ounce. Now we're giving 20 cents an ounce, or you can eat it. So that's what I've always saw coming with silver and gold. That's why the scripture says your silver and your gold won't save you, because you can't eat it in the end. If you really think you're in the end times, you should be converting all your silver and gold into food and drink. That's what I would do if I had any money. I'd be stowing away dates and nuts and rice and beans and good wine and good liquor, because that's what's going to be valuable when everything crashes, not silver and gold. They're going to take that from you and give you just a few electronic chits so you can go out and buy your $20 loaves of bread. I mean, anyway, that's sort of the negative picture the scripture paints. I'm just trying to fit it into, you know, I don't see the world getting better. I don't see Donald Trump saving anybody. I don't see war being averted. I don't see peace coming to this world. I see that these guys are squeezing us to the point where we're going to be happy to go kill the people they show us need to be killed because it's the only way to keep our way of life, which they've sold us, is so great that everybody wants to kill us to be like us. And it's just not true. I mean, all they've sold the world is this pie in the sky vision of laziness and obsessive consumerism, crap nobody needs, that they can't wait to sell you and talk about how great we are for having this economy on one hand. And on the other side, they show you how well it's destroying the earth. We got more plastic in the ocean. Well, I mean, what if we went back to an organic society? That would help, wouldn't it? Oh, no, can't do that. What would we be? Socialists? Oh, God. We got to have a free market. Oh, we got to have, Standard Oil. We got to have Ford Motor Company pumping out cars, no matter we got more cars than we even have space to park them, right? We got to keep pumping out supermarkets full of plastic stuff, even though we have nowhere to put the plastic. So you can tell it's all a lie because they don't change anything. If the plastic they thought was a problem, why wouldn't they make us go back to a different way of living? But instead, they keep selling us all this stuff, bloating us on their consumer goods because all it's doing is stealing all the wealth and putting it in the hands of the people who are able to sell us on everybody buying the same crap from the same company, everybody needing the same thing, nobody being able to grow food for themselves, build their own house, live off the land or build their own boat, live off the sea. None of that anymore. So the whole thing's obscene. Just what I see in the Bay Area and the whole boating scene with all these plastic boats and these marinas that are parking lots for plastic boats. And nobody wants wooden boats. They're supposed to be so dirty. But wait a minute. The plastic boats are made out of oil. All oil. I mean, and they're made in places where it's not exactly what you call a craft industry. I mean, there's some, but a lot of these boats are punched out in factories with workers that are working with toxic materials in less than ideal conditions, health conditions and otherwise, and they're not being paid very much money. If you look at the people that have to work with that toxic stuff at the boatyard in San Francisco, they get $120 an hour. So figure that into building one of your plastic boats. If you weren't paying $5 an hour to help kill somebody in some third world country, you wouldn't even have that oil-based boat to stick in a parking lot for $1,000 a month and rob the world of another beautiful wooden boat. Let alone that in 50 years, the plastic boat will be thrown away, God knows where, to be turned into some fiberglass that doesn't break down for hundreds of years, where the wooden boat can last 100 years or more. And if it is neglected, well, at least it's wood. Most of it turns back into organic material. So the argument against wooden boats to me is just absurd. Everybody wants these plastic boats that apparently don't take any maintenance, meaning there's nobody left that knows how to work on a boat, just people that know how to clean them and polish them for absentee owners that don't clean and polish their own boat anymore. And this is what we call, this is who we cater to. This is who everybody wants to be like in America. You want to be like one of these people, be able to buy a big plastic boat and have Latino workers who you want to build a wall to keep them out, but you also don't want to pay anybody $25 an hour to clean your boat. You want to pay them 12. So who else is going to do that but immigrant workers that, don't have to pay taxes? So, the whole system is so absurd to pretend that this system is free and great. This is the one everyone should defend. This is the one we should all get behind, right? Whether red team or whether Obama's the guy we should get behind in his socialism, or Trump and his brand of absurd imperialism. These are the options, and this is the country that everybody should want to get behind, not some crazy people like Iran. Heck, they believe in God. You know what I mean? Not some crazy people like China. They believe in their ancestors. They believe in old people. They believe in the future. They believe in planning 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 years out instead of just making money 5 years out. And the only reason those cultures don't operate that way anymore is because they were taken over by this one, this disgusting culture of terrorism, this fourth beast of Daniel that devoured the whole world. So I just want to keep reminding people that, listen, in your regular life, apart from the 1 hour you spend every week or two with me, that world you live in out there is the beast. That chip you carry around is the same chip that they're going to then demand you put on your hand. The buying and selling you do today is the same buying and selling that supports the same beast system that's the one you're so afraid is going to come from the sky one day and chip everybody. You're already chipped, and it already came from the sky. It's already here, and we're already in it. So what to do about it? See, what can you do? Love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, that's all we can do, right? And don't take that mark, I guess, when the false Messiah offers it, because that's going to be something more than the chip we're already carrying. I'm just pointing out it's the same system. The guy that gave you the chip, that gave us the chip we're carrying in the credit card, is the same exact guy who's the false Messiah, is the same exact guy who's going to say you got to put the chip on your hand if you want to eat. Same guy who gave you the chip to put in your credit card today. So it's not a different guy. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I really apologize that I haven't been able. I mean, I haven't even had access to my Bible because these days it's on electronic on the internet, and I haven't been able to get on the internet much or anything. So, in fact, I'm not on the internet now. I'm just recording this, and I'll have to hope in the next couple of days I get it up to Dad and he can get it up on the air. So I'm really sorry that it's taken long in between. I'm in my own struggle, and I feel we all must be struggling, the 2 dozen of us here, because the truth in this world, man, you got to swim upstream to catch any glimpse of it. And I'm getting good at swimming upstream. So I hope you guys can hang with me, and I appreciate the ones that do. Dave and Michael and Dad, thanks for always being here and supporting, keeping us going. And the few other of you that contact me and help us and keep us going, really appreciate it. I hope we all get to, I feel like we're all gonna see the thing we're waiting to see. I mean, we are seeing it, but there's going to be these milestones, the 9/11s and the Donald Trumps and the embassy moves and the North Korean, you know, EMP strikes and all the stuff that's coming in the script. We're the guys that are really flipping the script on them. They're not fooling us. So anyway, thanks for being here, you guys. God bless everybody. I hope we get to talk to you again soon.